is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Gen Con 2024 on the Glass Cannon Network and our interview series. I am Joe O'Brien from the Glass Cannon Network, and I am going through a series of interviews here as we talk to incredible game designers, developers, publishers, all throughout the industry that are here in Indianapolis this weekend. And whether you're here or watching from afar, this interview is for you. Right now, I am very, very excited to talk to Carlos Cabrera, the developer of the Welcome to Night Vale RPG. Carlos, thank you so much for taking some time out to sit down and talk with me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
It is absolutely our pleasure. I know that Welcome to Night Vale is cooking up a little backer kit campaign for an RPG release. And I know that we have tons of viewers, listeners, and people in-house here, man, performers, producers that are big fans of Welcome to Night Vale. And so I know that it's going to be awesome to be able to give them some insight into the development of this game, how this kind of came to be, and what they can expect from the game itself, what it might be like. We're going to cover all of that in this interview. But before we dive into that, I found out, and the first time I met you, which was a couple weeks ago, was that you had already been in this business for some time, designing and developing, working on games, including developing and writing for Paizo. Is that right?
I have, yeah. So I actually started in 2017 writing for Pathfinder First Edition with several third-party publishers. Okay. And then within the next year was writing for Paizo from First Edition now into Second, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So how do you first get that gig? I mean, a lot of people, they kill to get into that business. How did you kind of make that first break into work with Paizo on First Edition?
So I am actually local to Seattle, and Paizo was in the Redmond offices on the east side. So I was just basically showing up to every PaizoCon that I could back when they were in person before the pandemic, and met the right people. And within a few years, finally got the connection that I need. It was a lot of fun.
That is so awesome, man. And it's a story that I've heard several times, which makes me it's another reason I just love PaizoCon. I love that. I miss it being in person. We had so much fun going there, and we would hear that all the time, like how accessible they were to meet new game designers and stuff. So that's great. What are some of the titles that you may have worked on while you were at Paizo, just so our viewers who are, we're a big Pathfinder network, and so a lot of our viewers, they'll know you through some of the work you've already done if you let them know here.
Yeah, so I started with some First Edition work at the tail end of First Edition before Second came out. I have some back matter in the Born by the Sun's Grace, or the end of the Whispering Tyrant sort of storyline.
Oh, yeah. That's the last one, right? That's like the last AP in 1E, yeah.
I did some of the Kingmaker Anniversary Edition work for the re-release for that.
Cool.
And then I also did some Bard feats for the Second Edition Advanced Player's Guide. And what I just recently discovered was some of that work made it into the player core transition. And myself, and along with the other authors of that book, got nominated for an Annie Award this year.
I saw that. Yes. Yeah. So, I think the results may already be out by the time this airs. We are pre-recording this, but congratulations. That is really, really exciting. And I hope that goes your way. I'm a big fan of the player core. I'll just say, it's an incredible book, an incredible piece of work, and I think an important one in making a statement about where, kind of game designing needs to go in the next years. So great work on that. Let's talk about Welcome to Night Vale, though. So Renegade Games, who is behind, the engine behind the Welcome to Night Vale RPG, saw an opportunity here and really thought there was an incredible world that could be turned into a perfect tabletop RPG, and they start looking around. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but they start looking around for people that can help develop this, that can help create this game, and that leads them to you. So before we get into the details of that, why don't we talk for a second about, I think we should step back a moment and talk about what Welcome to Night Vale is. I think it's such a huge property. Tons of people already know it. But you know what? A lot of people don't. It's a podcast. It's a kind of world where it can have a huge fan base, and you can still run across a lot of people that are like, I've never heard of that one before. So Welcome to Night Vale starts as a podcast, and now we want to develop it into an RPG. Give us a little background for the noobs among us that aren't so familiar with the world or the concept.
Yeah, so Night Vale is a small desert town where every conspiracy theory is true. There's things that go bump in the night. It delves into the supernatural. It delves into the strange and the weird, and even a little bit of horror too. And one of the things that separates it from even some of the other RPGs that Renegade puts out is that it's also a very dangerous place. On a regular basis, characters can find themselves trapped in a different dimension, another timeline, and the game actually specifically addresses that in various ways.
Oh, that's really, really cool. This is a podcast that has been around for how long? Ballpark.
It's been about 12 years, I think. I think 2012 is when it first came out.
And these episodes, these installments, slowly over time, they have kind of developed this massive world, right? With all
and
kinds
then they started
of
doing live shows and touring at the same time. About 2 years later, I actually had the chance to attend one of their live shows this past February, I think.
Where was that?
This was at the Neptune Theater in the north part of Seattle.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
it was actually the very first one that they, very first location that they started doing their tours in. And I was there for the 10th year anniversary. It was amazing. It was a great show.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, we. I'm pretty sure that was our first show in Seattle was at the Neptune. I'm pretty sure. It's a great venue. I do wonder though if you kind of teased it a little bit, but I'd love for you to go in a little bit more detail for a second if you could. Knowing the setting a little bit, why is this setting so? Why does it make itself the perfect kind of place to set an RPG specifically? Like, why was it a good place to try out a project like this?
Yeah, what's great about the world is that it has so much deep lore to delve into, and especially in the realms of mystery and suspense and thriller, it really sort of instills that sense of curiosity of why you would want to check out this place during an adventure and really hook the players into investigating what's going on in this really weird town.
So did you go check them out at a live show, dig into the podcast and stuff like that, like after Renegade called you up and started looking at you for this project, or had you listened to it prior to that?
So I listened to it prior. I have a really fun story of how I was sort of introduced to the Night Vale world. I had moved into a house full of people at one point here in Seattle, and I share the name of one of the characters from Night Vale, Carlos the Scientist. And I think in a very appropriate Night Vale fashion was sort of introduced it kind of like a cult. Like all of a sudden, all my roommates were saying, "It's Carlos with his straight white teeth like a military cemetery." And I'm like, what is going on, guys? But I just had to check it out.
So you first learned about it from roommates that you were living with in the Pacific Northwest. And then what, did you get hooked? I mean, is this something that you got into right away?
Yeah. So I started checking out the podcast after that point. And once I eventually got the word that they were looking for a developer for the project, and I was referred by someone from Paizo, actually, Jason Keeley.
Yes.
I immediately went back and started listening to the podcast again from the beginning. And my GM brain was like, okay, let me write down all of these things about an adventure I would want to run in Night Vale, but was like, that's going to take forever. But thankfully, one of the things that was done on the project before I came on board was a really handy reference guide to that world. So I got to sum up everything I've been basically listening to over the years, and that was a really great start for me. That's
terrific. Were there other Night Vale fans involved in the writing process, like in the development process of the game?
Yeah, so as developer, I was in charge with a team of writers for this project, and every single one of them were a fan of Night Vale in some way.
Oh, wow. That's great. So there must be just a lot of like genuine passion for the content in the world. That's awesome. So as I mentioned before, Renegade is going to launch a backer kit campaign to get this project off the ground in October, I believe. I think you have a date for this set, right?
So
when is it going to be?
The date for the backer kit will be October 1st.
Oh,
and
right,
you can actually go to their sign up page right now to be notified of when the campaign launches.
Okay, awesome. So we'll get back into more information on exactly how to do that in a second, but I want to dig into this game a little bit because I'm glad we have the background now, and I'd like to know a little more about the RPG itself, what it's going to be like. Can you, I know it's early, I know we're not even in backer kit yet, but do you have a pretty good sense of what the tone of the RPG would be. You mentioned horror, you mentioned thriller, you mentioned sort of fantasy and science fiction, supernatural elements, conspiracy theories. There's a lot that you're saying. I'm curious what the game feel would be like.
Yeah, so basically in the set that we'll be putting out on the backer kit, you can either play a pre-gen character or create your own with the rules that we provided. And you're investigating a mystery of Night Vale. And that mystery, without giving too much away, is effectively someone is hijacking the community radio station, which of course is how Night Vale presents itself as
that's the podcast. Yeah.
So you basically want to find out how you can get the radio station back under its normal control with Cecil, the main character of the podcast, and then just sort of explore some of the locations and meet some of the other residents of this town and find out what's going on.
Oh my gosh. We'll have to get into residents in a second. But yeah, iconic settings, iconic residents, of course, out of the gate. So kind of like a mystery exploration kind of feel. What about the mechanics? What is the core mechanic of the game?
Yeah, so Welcome to Night Vale uses the same Essence 20 role-playing game that Renegade has with all their other titles. It's the same system that powers Transformers, Power Rangers, My Little Pony. And with Night Vale, we thought it was a great system to use because it sits in a really familiar place with D20 games. You start with your core D20 mechanic, and then also using a pool of dice similar to other storytelling systems you might be familiar with, like World of Darkness, for example. So for anyone not familiar with Essence 20, you start off with the D20 for your main roll, but then you have your 4 essences. You've got strength, social, speed, and smarts. And every single essence point is a skill point that you can put to focus your character in whatever specialties that they have. And those skill points are actually the dice you use in your dice pool. So it starts from D4 and goes all the way up to D6, D8, D10, and D12. And every skill point that you put into one of those essences and skills gives you a larger die type to add to your dice pool. And you can also do certain things like specialize in skills. So if you were, say, specialize in a social skill or, bartering at your local store, specializations allow you to roll your D6, for example, but then also all of the dice underneath it to add to your dice pool.
Oh, that is so cool. That is such a little detail that is so fun. It like really makes you want to specialize. So if you have a D8 in your specialty, you're rolling a D8, a D6, and a D4, all in addition to...
And then you add the highest number between them, so it gives you the maximum chance to get the highest roll.
That's really cool. And it does make me... my follow-up question was going to be, so is your dice pool always 2? And the answer is no. Especially if you specialize, you're going to have several dice. So am I understanding this right? I've not played these Essence 20 games myself, to be honest, and so I might dig into this a little bit more. You're going to roll a D20, and then you're going to add a D6 to it, if that's where your skill level is at. If it's at a D6 level, you'd roll a D20, roll a D6, add up that number. And what are you comparing that number to? There's some sort of target number or DC or
some kind of target number or difficulty number is what it's called. And it goes all the way from D12 down to actually a D2 coin that it's going to be provided in the dice set as well.
Those are what the bonuses are that you get, or D2 to D12. What is like, give me an example of an average difficulty number. Like what's kind of a normal range difficulty number at a lower level?
First level characters, it's probably around the range of 12 to 15, depending upon the challenge. Yeah.
Right in there. Okay. Interesting. And how many skills does like the character sheet have, for example? Is there dozens and dozens? Is it there 8? Is there like how many?
I think it's actually 6 per essence. So you'll have 6 strength skills, 6 social, and so on. So but what we're sort of introducing skills that makes Night Vale really separate is introducing the weird skill. And that's how you directly interact with all of the strange things in ways that the normal skills don't allow you to do.
That's really cool. So some of the skills that exist in these other games that you had mentioned, Transformers, etc., a lot of those same skills have ported over to Welcome to Night Vale because they're kind of general enough to focus in both games, but then you have this added weird skill.
Yes, yeah, sort of like how My Little Pony introduced magic to the world. The Night Vale game specifically has the weird skill, which is for how you can interact and interpret and just deal with all of the strange things happening in this town.
What's character advancement like, and how does that occur? Is that something that, per session, or is it something you got to build up experience points? Like, what is kind of, how do characters advance?
So there is milestone development for your characters that you can use. It also recommends other ways that you can play as sort of optional rules. But I think milestone is usually the classic Essence 20 type of style. So let's say the adventure in the game, it brings you up to, I think, level 3 or 4 by the end of the adventure, and then also provides you the rules that you can continue on yourself and bring yourself up to level 5.
Is there combat? Like, are there rules for like tactical combat? Are there maps?
So because Night Vale is mainly a narrative setting, there's a lot of emphasis for Night Vale being theater of the mind. And you could still use grids and ranges and things like that, but it's a little bit simplified. Okay. So instead of having like listed feet, there's, short range and medium range and long range like that. So it's easier to interpret on a map, but also really, really big on theater of the mind. What
about character death? Is it something that you feel like as a developer can happen easily? It's really kind of hard to kill a PC? Do PCs not really die in this? I'm kind of curious with this setting. It doesn't sound like the kind of place that's very deadly for PCs, but maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't know.
It can be, actually. So without giving away too many spoilers, there's a specific enemy in the adventure that you could fight if you want to. But it's definitely
GM's just going, you sure you want to do that?
Exactly. So, but there's also even low-level creatures. Like, for example, the Night Vale world has deer that will launch themselves at vehicles and shift people they hit into another timeline.
Wow. And that is so cool. That's amazing.
That's right in the core box.
Oh, that is fantastic. What do you see the average game session being like in terms of time? Do you think that people sit down and play for 2 to 4 hours? Is that pretty much a general game session?
Pretty average for us as well, yeah.
And is it sort of scenario, operation, mission based generally? Or do you have this idea that down the line there'll be these like long-term campaigns with like, long sandboxy kind of stories?
So in this particular set, we sort of introduced Night Vale as the GM being the host of the adventure. And we also call the adventures incidents.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
So you're hosting this incident that's going to befall your players. And you can either play several incidents that you create. You can use the one in the core book to start you off. But they're also called incidents because there's going to be certain things happening which could actually be very deadly for your players.
It could actually be very deadly. Yeah. All right, so you're talking about popping into different timelines and stuff, and so it makes me wonder what is time like in the game? How fast does time generally pass? Can you have game sessions where whole seasons pass for characters, or is it very incident based and very kind of minute by minute? I'm curious, especially when you're talking about time travel. Like, what if one character time travels somewhere else? How does that all work itself out?
So we have special information for hosts and GMs who want to actually use those kind of mechanics in play. So, for example, take the deer creature. Because it has this ability that can shift you into a different timeline, you have the option to tell the story of what happens in that separate timeline. Or do you have your characters try to get those other players back and maybe rescue them and return them to their normal timeline? Or, things like portals, what happens to them when they jump through those?
Yeah.
So because Night Vale is such a strange, weird place, pretty much anything can happen, but we have cues in there for GMs to say, if your players want to roll with this, here's how it works.
That's great. It is such a weird place that, it really gives the host a lot of options, which, that's a fun way to approach it. speaking of the setting again, let's come back to that for a second. I've been grilling you on game mechanics because I love geeking out over that, but I think that there's a lot of Night Vale fans out there that would be curious about how much the creators of Night Vale, the people that write, create, and perform on Night Vale, are they involved in this process at all? Is this a completely separate animal that Renegade is working on? Or, have you spoken with the creators? Like, how does this all develop?
So I haven't spoken to the creators myself, but I did have the option to, number one, I met Tamika's voice actor during the live show, which was a great experience. But so they've actually seen all of the text that we've prepared up to this point to get their approval and their comments and their feedback. So they've been definitely involved in the story and the characters and making sure we're hitting the tone and everything just right. So yeah, they've definitely been a part of it.
So, that's awesome. And what about you talked about these, like some of these iconic locations, and you met the voice of, who was it again?
Tamika, yeah.
Yeah, Tamika. Can fans expect to see iconic NPCs in this adventure or in this box set? Are they going to be able to run into them and talk to them?
Yeah, so we'll have stats for 11 of the actual characters from Night Vale that players can use right out of the box. And Cecil and Tamika, at least those two, will be directly in the adventure.
Wow, that's awesome. So the backer kit is going to launch with a box set. It's not just a rule book. It's not just an adventure. It's a whole box of things to get you started and kicked off on your way to playing it. Do you know what's in it? You're a developer, but do you know exactly what they're going to be selling in this box? What would an average donation get you if you just come in at a default level on the backer kit campaign? What could you expect to get?
Yeah, so I do know what's in it. Your standard pledge is going to be the box set with the 4 different books, as well as a dice set and a backer kit exclusive dice set that you can order for the pledge as well. Then there's a deluxe version, which comes with some additional dice, a dice bag, and a dice tray.
Okay.
And then there's, of course, the retail pledge and just a digital-only version if that's what you want to.
Oh, so you can also get the digital-only version. That's great. What are the dice like? Are they? Is there a specific theme that they kind of? Do you even know? Have they designed them yet? Where are they at on the dice?
I think
design?
One of the greatest joys on this project is I got to decide what the coin and the dice will look like for the set.
Oh, you got to decide? That's great.
Yeah, so you'll actually see the Night Vale eye pop up in a lot of places.
Amazing. I was curious. I was like, are we looking at all numbers here, or is there going to be some other options? That's great. That's great. Well, it's a backer kit campaign, so there's got to be stretch goals as well, I would think.
That is correct.
What are some of the things that you're trying to elevate the project to offer?
Yeah, so what we'll be expecting with the stretch goals is going to be some additional threats and creatures that you might face, some additional pre-gens to use for more character options, as well as more storylines and plot hooks to expand the world of Night Vale that you can play in based off what we've already seen.
So more storylines and plot hooks, meaning if you hit some of these stretch goals, you'll be writing additional adventures or incidents or whatever that people can. And when you use the term hook, I've seen that coming up more recently in game supplements and expansion books for settings and stuff like that I didn't, maybe that's what they always were, but I didn't hear people using that term as much. And I can really kind of see how, if you're reading a setting, it's not really an adventure per se, but it's giving you details of an area and giving you potential hooks. I mean, is that what we're talking about here? It's like, it's not so much a blow by blow adventure as much as it is details that flesh out a setting and then give you little stories about NPCs that could easily give you problems to solve or trouble to stir up or things like that. Is that my kind of thinking about this right?
Yeah, you're about on the right track. So one of the things that we're going to be included in the book is the reference visitor's guide. So that already explains what your classic Night Vale locations are, and it gives you plenty of information to start from. But for the stretch goals, it'll include additional details about some of the mysteries that are happening in some of those locations.
Okay.
Also, the book will have the threat handouts for creatures that exist in Night Vale that actually aren't in the adventure. So it'll sort of expand what you can do and the things that you'll face once the adventure wraps up, if you want to continue telling your tales outside of the adventure itself. And then there's going to be the NPCs in the GMs and host guide, and then the citizen guide is the player-facing information, all your character building stuff.
The citizen guide. That's great. Yeah. What are we talking about here? Ballpark. I'm not going to hold you to it. What are we talking about here? Ballpark locations. Like you say, the detailed locations. How many locations are there? I mean,
well, I think we're looking at. There's probably around. I want to say there's probably around 25, 30 locations minimum that we touch just in the visitor's guide alone.
Wow.
Yeah. So the adventure itself. The first incident that you play through is going to be just in one of those locations.
Okay.
And then hopefully we'll be able to get more through the stories and the plot hooks that we want to release for the stretch goals.
That's fantastic. Well, if you guys want to see this played, you can see it right here. If you might have missed it here on YouTube during Gen Con, we ran through it. I did not get to play it myself, but some other folks at the GCN played it and ran it. So it's right here on our YouTube channel. We'll put a link in the description for that so you can check out an actual play of it. We also have a character creation sample where Jared and Matthew ran through a character creation. And so you can kind of see how that works with Welcome to Night Vale. There is a lot of potential different ways you can check this thing out before you decide if and when you're ready to back it on BackerKit. What is the we talked about this earlier, but let's nail this down. How do people sign up to be notified when it comes up? I mean, you say October 1st right now. Of course, I'm going to remember for the next 5 minutes, but then I go on with my life and it suddenly gets out of sight, out of mind. So how do I get notified of that when it goes live?
Yeah, so you can sign up in the links below to get notified of when the BackerKit will launch.
Okay.
And October 1st will be the date.
October 1st will be the date. Yeah. So there's going to be we'll put it right in the description of this video. Click on that and you'll be able to set your email sign up to get notified as soon as the project goes live. Well, Carlos, this has been really awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and talk me through the development of this new RPG from scratch. You know what I mean? Like you have this existing setting. It's really neat, I think, to see how it makes that evolution from just a setting and a storytelling vehicle to making an engine where fans can tell their own stories at home. That's a really cool thing to be a part of. So thank you again for being with us. I hope everybody enjoyed this. If you have any other questions or comments, put them in the comments below and we'll get back to you there. But I hope everybody continues to have a fantastic Gen Con, whether you're here or not. The best 4 days in gaming are coming to an end soon. It's so tragic, but we're very happy that we got a chance to talk to Carlos here and learn more about Welcome to Night Vale. So stay tuned. We're going to have more games and more interviews coming. But for now, take it easy, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much.